My name is Captain James Mitchell. I've been flying private jets for 15 years now. 15 long years of crossing oceans and continents, navigating through storms and clear skies, billionaires, celebrities, politicians, royalty, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I've flown them all across the world, from New York to Dubai, from London to Tokyo, from Paris to Singapore, from Los Angeles to Sydney. I've seen the inside of every luxury airport lounge on 6 continents. I've landed in storms that would make most pilots turn back without thinking twice. I've navigated through restricted airspace and diplomatic complications. I've flown through ice storms over the Arctic. I've dodged thunderstorms over the Pacific. I've done it all, or so I thought. I believed I'd seen everything this profession could throw at me. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing in my 15 years of experience, could have prepared me for what happened on Flight November 73 Alpha, the flight that should have been routine. Just another day at the office, just another wealthy client being transported across the Atlantic Ocean from one continent to another. The flight that became a nightmare at 35,000 feet above the cold, dark, unforgiving Atlantic Ocean. The flight that tested everything I'd ever learned, everything I'd ever been trained to do, and everything I believed about myself as a pilot and as a man. Let me take you back to where it all began, back to that cold November morning when everything changed, when my world turned upside down. It started like any other assignment on a cold November morning, the kind of morning where your breath fogs in the air and you can see frost on the grass, the kind of morning where you wish you'd worn a heavier coat. My client was Marcus Beaumont, a tech billionaire worth approximately $8 billion. You've probably heard of him. He's been on the cover of Forbes magazine 3 times, Time magazine's Person of the Year finalist twice. He's the man behind Quantum Tech, the company that revolutionized cloud computing and data encryption. Started in his garage 20 years ago with $50,000 borrowed from his parents. Built it into a global empire. Now it's worth over $20 billion with offices in 15 countries and 30,000 employees worldwide. The American dream personified. From nothing to everything in 2 decades. The flight plan was simple enough. New York to Geneva, Switzerland. 7 hours of smooth flying. Beaumont and 3 of his business associates. Just standard corporate travel. Nothing unusual. I arrived at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey at 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun hadn't even risen yet. The sky was that deep purple color you only see before dawn. The air was crisp and cold, typical for November in the Northeast. My breath formed little clouds in the freezing air as I walked across the tarmac. The Gulfstream G650 was all ready, fueled and ready, gleaming under the bright floodlights. Beautiful aircraft, top of the line. $70 million worth of engineering perfection. Twin Rolls-Royce engines, each capable of producing 16,000 pounds of thrust. Maximum speed, Mach 0.925. Range of 7,000 nautical miles. Luxury leather seats, full galley, private bedroom. This wasn't just an aircraft. It was a flying palace. My co-pilot, Sarah Chen, was already there running pre-flight checks. Sarah was one of the best pilots I'd ever worked with. Former Air Force, flew C-17 cargo planes for 8 years. Sharp as a tack and completely professional. Never late, never missed a detail. We'd flown together for 3 years, hundreds of flights, thousands of hours. I trusted her with my life. "Morning, Captain," she said as I climbed aboard. She was reviewing the flight management system. Weather looks perfect. Winds aloft are favorable. We should make Geneva with fuel to spare. Sounds good, I replied, settling into the left seat. The captain's seat, my office for the next 7 hours. Everything was perfect that morning. The aircraft systems all checked out green. The weather was ideal. It was going to be a smooth, uneventful flight. Too perfect. Looking back on it now, Marcus Beaumont arrived at 5:45 with his guests. 3 black SUVs pulled up to the aircraft. Professional drivers, security detail, the whole VIP treatment. Beaumont stepped out first, mid-50s, but looked younger, fit, well-dressed in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost $10,000. 3 men in expensive tailored suits followed him, the kind of suits that cost more than most people make in a month. Custom-fitted, Italian wool, silk ties. The first man was introduced to me as Richard Vail, Beaumont's chief financial officer. Tall guy, late 40s, silver hair perfectly styled, wire-rimmed glasses. He had that corporate confidence about him. Harvard Business School education written all over him. He shook my hand firmly, looked me in the eye. The second was David Park, head of acquisitions for Quantum Tech. Asian descent, mid-30s, with nervous energy that radiated off him. He kept checking his phone every few seconds, adjusting his tie, fidgeting with his briefcase. Some people are naturally anxious, especially when flying. I didn't think much of it at the time. The third man was simply introduced as Mr. Kozlov. No first name, no title, just Kozlov. Now, Kozlov made every one of my military instincts scream. Russian accent, thick and unmistakable. Cold gray eyes that seemed to look right through you. Not a single expression on his face. No smile, no warmth, just cold, calculated efficiency. He was built like a tank. Broad shoulders, thick neck, hands that looked like they could crush stones. He moved like a predator, every step deliberate and purposeful. Military background, special forces probably, Spetsnaz if I had to guess. He didn't shake my hand, didn't acknowledge me at all, just looked at me with those dead eyes for a long moment, then walked past me onto the aircraft. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I'd learned long ago not to question my client's choice of associates. Beaumont's money was good, his reputation was solid, so I pushed my instincts aside and did my job. We completed the boarding process. Sarah did her safety briefing. Then we taxied to the runway. Tower cleared us for takeoff at 6:12 a.m. The weather was perfect. Clear skies, light winds, everything a pilot could ask for. The Gulf Stream roared down the runway, and we lifted off smoothly. New York City's lights spread out beneath us. We climbed steadily, reaching our cruising altitude of 41,000 feet about 20 minutes later. I leveled off and engaged the autopilot. Everything was running perfectly. Sarah unbuckled and stood up. "I'll go offer them some refreshments," she said. "Standard procedure." I nodded, and she opened the cockpit door and stepped into the cabin. That's when everything changed. I was reviewing our flight plan when I heard Sarah's voice from the cabin. Something was wrong. Her tone was off, sharp. Then I heard Marcus Beaumont shout something, angry, confused. My hand moved instinctively toward the radio, but before I could react, the cockpit door burst open behind me. I spun around in my seat. David Park stood in the doorway, and in his hand was a gun, not some cheap pistol. This was military-grade hardware, a Sig Sauer P226, 9mm. I recognized it immediately from my Navy days. "Keep flying, Captain," Park said. His voice was calm, too calm for a man holding a gun. Nothing dramatic, no distress calls, no course changes, just keep this aircraft steady and level. Understood? My heart was hammering against my ribs, but I kept my voice steady. Years of military training kicking in. Understood. Sarah was behind him, hands raised, terror in her eyes. Then Kozlov appeared, filling the doorway. In his hand was a satellite phone. "You will fly exactly where we tell you, Captain Mitchell," Kozlov said in that thick Russian accent. "Your co-pilot will remain in the cabin as insurance. Any deviation from our instructions, and she dies. Any emergency signals, and she dies. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear," I said. Park grabbed Sarah's arm and forced her back into the cabin. I heard muffled voices. Beaumont was shouting again, then struggling. Then a sound that made my blood turn to ice. A gunshot, single shot, sharp crack that echoed through the cabin. Then silence. My mind raced. Was Beaumont dead? Was Sarah okay? Kozlov stepped into the cockpit and closed the door. He handed me a piece of paper with coordinates. "This is your new destination. Adjust course now." I looked at the numbers. We were being redirected to somewhere over the North Atlantic, far from any commercial flight paths, far from any rescue. "What did you do to Beaumont?" I asked. Kozlov smiled coldly. "Mr. Beaumont is no longer your concern. Your only concern is flying where we tell you. Now, adjust the course." I had no choice. Not with Sarah's life on the line. I input the new coordinates. The Gulf Stream banked gently to the left. We were now flying toward the middle of nowhere. Kozlov settled into Sarah's seat, gun resting on his lap, but always pointed in my general direction. For the next 4 hours, I flew in complete silence. Just the steady hum of the engines, the whisper of air flowing over the fuselage, the occasional beep from the flight management computer. Kozlov sat there like a stone statue, watching me with those cold, emotionless eyes, occasionally checking his satellite phone, reading messages, typing responses, never speaking unless absolutely necessary. The tension in that cockpit was suffocating. Every minute felt like an hour. Park stayed in the cabin with Sarah, and presumably with Beaumont's body. I didn't know if Vale was part of the plan or if he was another victim tied up somewhere. I had no information, no communication with the outside world. No way to know what was really happening just 15 feet behind me. Just fear and uncertainty and the endless sky stretching in all directions. Just me and Kozlov, and a loaded gun in a pressurized aluminum tube 7 miles above the ocean. My mind wouldn't stop racing, couldn't stop analyzing the situation. This wasn't some random hijacking by desperate criminals looking for a quick payday. This wasn't some mentally ill person having a breakdown. These men knew exactly who I was. They knew my background. They knew my training. They'd planned this operation meticulously, down to the smallest detail, every move calculated, every contingency anticipated. But why? What was their end game? What did they really want with Marcus Beaumont? Then it hit me like a punch to the gut. The fuel. Basic aviation mathematics, physics and numbers that don't lie. We had loaded enough fuel for a 7-hour flight to Geneva with standard reserves, enough to divert to an alternate airport if needed, enough to hold in a pattern if Geneva was closed. But we'd been flying for over 4 hours now on a completely different route. Different headwinds affecting our fuel burn, different altitude optimization, different weather patterns. If they kept us airborne much longer on this heading, flying toward absolutely nowhere, we wouldn't have enough fuel to reach any airport anywhere. We'd have to ditch in the freezing Atlantic Ocean. And ditching a business jet in the ocean, I'd seen the statistics. The survival rate is almost zero. The aircraft breaks apart on impact. People drown. Bodies are never recovered. "Where are we actually going?" I asked Kozlov. He looked at me with those cold eyes. "You'll know soon enough. Just keep flying." Another hour passed, 5 hours total since takeoff. I was calculating fuel burns constantly. We were approaching the point of no return. Then Kozlov's satellite phone buzzed. He answered, spoke in rapid Russian. The plan was moving forward. He ended the call and handed me another paper. New coordinates. I looked at them and felt a spark of hope. A small airstrip in Iceland, Keflavik. We had just barely enough fuel to make it. "Why Iceland?" I asked. Kozlov leaned back in the seat, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he seemed almost relaxed, almost pleased with himself. "Because, Captain Mitchell, Mr. Beaumont's death needs to look like an accident, a completely believable tragedy, a tragic mechanical failure over the Atlantic Ocean. Very sad, very unfortunate, very convincing. The aircraft will be found eventually by search and rescue teams. Maybe in a few days, maybe in a few weeks. They'll find the wreckage floating on the surface. They'll find his body still strapped in his seat. Everything will point to a catastrophic failure at altitude. Engine explosion, maybe. Structural failure. Something technical and random and impossible to prevent. But you and your co-pilot? Unfortunately, you won't survive to tell anyone the real story. You'll disappear over the ocean somewhere between here and Iceland. Just another tragic mystery of the sea. 2 more names on the list of pilots lost over the Atlantic. Nobody will ever know what really happened up here today." My blood ran cold, but a plan was forming. During these hours of silence, I'd been observing Kozlov. He was ex-military, dangerous, but he wasn't a pilot. He didn't understand the systems, and that was going to be his mistake. "There's a problem," I said calmly. Kozlov's eyes narrowed. "What problem?" "We don't have enough fuel to reach Keflavik at this altitude, not with these headwinds. We need to descend to conserve fuel. But it's going to get rough, very rough. Lower altitude means more turbulence. You might want to go back to the cabin and secure yourself. Secure everyone. This could get violent." Kozlov frowned, studying me. "How rough?" "Rough enough that unsecured passengers could be seriously injured, maybe killed. You need to tell Park to secure Beaumont's body, secure Vale if he's alive, strap Sarah into a seat. This is going to be severe turbulence." Kozlov hesitated. That moment of hesitation was all I needed. "Go tell Park," I said firmly. "Tell him to secure everything. I'll begin descent in 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to prepare the cabin." Kozlov stood slowly, still pointing the gun at me. "Don't try anything clever, Captain." "No tricks," I said. "I just want to land safely. I'm a pilot, not a hero." He nodded and moved toward the door. As soon as he opened it, I heard sounds from the cabin. Sarah crying, someone groaning. Then Kozlov was gone, the door closing. I had maybe 60 seconds, maybe less. My hands flew across the controls. I unlocked the emergency transponder, switched to the international emergency frequency. 1.5 megahertz. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," I said quickly and clearly. "This is November 7-3 Alpha Gulfstream 650. Hijacking in progress. 4 hostiles on board. Currently over North Atlantic. Requesting immediate assistance. Repeat, hijacking in progress." I gave our exact coordinates and heading, then activated the emergency squawk code. 7500. Every radar screen within 500 miles would light up. Within seconds that felt like an eternity, the radio crackled to life with the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. November 7-3. Alpha, this is Reykjavik Control. We copy your Mayday. We have you on radar. F-16 fighters are scrambling to intercept your position. Maintain current heading. Help is on the way. Repeat, maintain current heading. You are not alone. Roger, Reykjavik, I said, and I couldn't keep the relief out of my voice. Maintaining heading, thank God. Then I heard the cockpit door opening behind me. Kozlov was coming back. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from beneath my seat in one smooth, practiced motion, spun around in my seat as fast as I could, and swung it with every ounce of strength I had. It connected with Kozlov's hand with a solid thud just as he was raising the gun. The weapon flew across the cockpit, bouncing off the instrument panel with a metallic clatter and landing near my feet. Kozlov lunged for it like a snake striking, but I was faster. I grabbed the Sig Sauer and aimed it directly at his chest with both hands in a proper firing stance. "Sit down," I said. My voice was steady now, calm, in complete control. "Hands on your head, interlace your fingers. Do it now." His cold eyes blazed with pure fury, but he was smart enough to know when he was beaten. He sat down slowly and put his hands on his head. I locked the cockpit door and hit the intercom. "Park, this is the captain. Your operation is over. Icelandic Air Force fighters are intercepting us. Reykjavik Control has been notified. Put down your weapon and secure yourself for landing. It's over." There was a long pause. Then Park's voice, defeated. "Understood." Within minutes, I saw them. 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons, one on each wing. Beautiful aircraft, bristling with weapons. I could see the pilots clearly through their canopies. I waved at the pilot on my left wing. He gave me a thumbs up. Escort secured. November 7-3 Alpha, Reykjavik Control. You are cleared to proceed direct to Keflavik Air Base. Armed response teams will be waiting. Do exactly as we tell you. Roger that, Reykjavik. Following your instructions. The descent into Keflavik was the longest 30 minutes of my life. Every second I expected something to go wrong, but nothing happened. They knew it was over. I landed that Gulf Stream as smoothly as I've ever landed any aircraft in my life. As soon as the wheels touched down, I saw them. Armed response vehicles everywhere. Military personnel in tactical gear, ambulances, fire trucks. I brought the aircraft to a complete stop on the taxiway as directed. Engines shut down. I kept the gun pointed at Kozlov until I heard the cabin door open and voices shouting commands in English and Icelandic. Sarah emerged first, shaken but alive, thank God. Then Park and Vale, hands raised, surrendering without resistance. Vale had been tied up in the bathroom. He wasn't part of the plan. He was another victim. Then came the biggest shock. Marcus Beaumont walked out of that aircraft, alive, shaken, angry, but alive. The gunshot I'd heard, Kozlov had fired into the cabin wall to terrify us. Beaumont had been bound and gagged, but alive. The Icelandic authorities arrested Kozlov and Park immediately. Vale and Sarah were taken to the hospital for evaluation. I stayed with the aircraft, giving my statement to officials. In the debriefing that followed over the next several days, with agents from multiple intelligence agencies asking me the same questions over and over again from every possible angle, everything became crystal clear. Every piece of the puzzle fell into place. Kozlov and Park weren't random criminals looking for a quick score. They weren't opportunistic hijackers. They were highly trained industrial spies, professionals hired by one of Beaumont's biggest competitors in the tech industry, a Chinese tech conglomerate called Dragon Systems that wanted Quantum Tech's proprietary algorithms and security codes. They wanted the source code. They wanted the encryption keys. They wanted everything that made Quantum Tech worth $20 billion. The plan was elaborate and almost brilliant in its cold, calculated simplicity. Fake Beaumont's death in a plane crash over the Atlantic Ocean. Make it look like a tragic accident. In the chaos and confusion and grief following the crash, before anyone could freeze accounts or change passwords, they would use Beaumont's biometric access codes to drain his company's accounts and steal years of research data. Billions of dollars. By the time anyone realized Beaumont hadn't actually died in the crash, they'd be long gone, billions of dollars richer, with technology that would make Dragon Systems unstoppable in the global market. Iceland was supposed to be their escape route to Russia, where they had connections and safe houses waiting, where they'd disappear forever with their fortune. But they'd made one critical mistake in their otherwise perfect plan. One fatal error. They'd underestimated the pilot. They'd assumed I was just another corporate chauffeur who pushed buttons. They didn't know about my Navy background. They didn't know about my combat training. And that mistake cost them everything. 3 weeks later, after all the investigations and debriefings and statements and meetings with lawyers and insurance companies and federal agents, after all the paperwork and reports and depositions, I received a phone call that changed everything. It was Marcus Beaumont himself. "Captain Mitchell," he said, and I could hear the genuine emotion and gratitude in his voice. "I owe you my life. You saved me. You saved Sarah. You saved Vale. You risked everything to stop them. How can I ever repay you? Name it. Anything you want. Anything at all." I thought about it for a long moment, considering his words carefully. "Just one thing, Mr. Beaumont. Next time you fly anywhere with anyone, do better background checks on your business associates. Much better. Thorough background checks." He laughed out loud. Actually laughed. "Consider it done, Captain. Lesson learned the hard way. And listen, seriously, if you ever want a job as my personal pilot, permanent position, the job is yours. I'll triple your current salary, quadruple it, name your price, whatever you want. You've earned it." I thought about his offer for 3 seconds. "Mr. Beaumont, I appreciate the offer, but I think I'm done with private jets. I'm going back to commercial aviation, flying regular routes where the only drama is delayed baggage." He laughed again. "I understand completely. Safe travels, Captain, and thank you." I hung up and looked out the window at the sky. 15 years of flying the wealthy and powerful, and it took one hijacking to remind me why I became a pilot in the first place. Not for the money, not for the prestige, but for the pure love of flying, the freedom of the sky, and the knowledge that sometimes, when everything goes wrong, the person in the captain's seat can make all the difference. My name is Captain James Mitchell. That was my last flight in private aviation, but not my last flight ever, because the sky is still calling, and I'm still listening, still flying. And every time I take off now, I remember that flight. November 73 Alpha, the flight that taught me who I really am. I'm a pilot, and nothing will ever change that. The end.